This is the July 26th regular meeting of the Chatham County-Savannah Metropolitan Planning Commission. The board consists of Mr. Joseph Welch, Chairman, Ms. Karen Jarrett, Vice Chairman, Mr. Travis Coles, Secretary, Dr. McLeod Watkins, Treasurer. The board members are Ms. Lorraine Bowles, Ms. Elizabeth Epstein, Mr. Joseph Irvine, Mr. Wayne Noah, Mr. Jeff Letitia, Mr. Cedric Coleman, Mr. Dwayne Stevens, Mr. Tom Wildwoody, Mr. Lee Smith, and Mr. Jay Miller. The MPC Executive Director is Melanie Wilson.
Good afternoon, everybody. This meeting will come to order here July 26, 2022. I ask y'all to please stand for invocation and pledge allegiance following. Mr. Joseph Irvin, if you lead us in prayer, sir.
Dear Father, we come before you as empty vessels standing before a fountain. We ask that you fill us with your wisdom, your knowledge, your grace, and your mercy. We come before you today in a country that is deeply divided. Divided by politics, we're divided by our religion. Father, we ask that you unify us, that we come together as a commission and as a board to do what is right and what is just for this community. This we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you for attendance of commissioners here in person, and City Manager Mr. Jay Melder is online with us today. For the staff, petitioners, and members of the public who are participating, our procedure will be as follows today. The agenda is broken down into several parts. First, notices, proclamations, and acknowledgments. Next, the consent agenda, which consists of items for which the applicant is in agreement with the staff recommendation and there are no known objections. This will be followed by regular business, old business, and adjournment. For each agenda item on regular business, the staff will make a presentation. The staff presentation will be followed by a presentation by the petitioner should they elect to do so. The petitioner will be allotted a time frame of no more than 20 minutes. The board may then ask questions of the petitioner or staff for clarification. Afterwards, the floor will be open for public comment. If you wish to comment on the item that the board is considering at the time, ask those of you at home to use your raise your hand feature on your computer screen. Do not use the feature until the item you want to comment on is being considered. At the appropriate time, you will be recognized and staff will unmute your microphone. At the end of your allotted time, as determined by me, the chair, your microphone will be muted and the chair will recognize the next speaker. The total public comment time will be equivalent to the petitioner's presentation if need be. Therefore, it is important that you use the raise your hand feature on your computer screen during the hearing on that item if you want to speak on a petition. Once the floor is closed for public comment on a petition, no additional public speakers will be allowed. If you're not certain you want to speak, still use the raise your hand feature on your computer screen. You will have the option to decline when your name is called. After the public comment, the petitioner will have the opportunity for rebuttal and then additional needed questions by the board. Finally, the board will take action. If you're here in the audience today and wish to speak, there should be a blue card out in the hallway for you to write your name and the item you wish to be here on, and please present it to the gentlemen or ladies at the desk over there. We will have approval of the agenda. I need a motion.
So moved, Coles.
No, it's second.
We'll do a verbal count. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We have notices, proclamations, acknowledgments. Today, July 26th, we had a special called Personnel Committee meeting at 11 a.m. at the Marshall House Conference Room on the first floor at 123 East Broughton Street. And today we have the regular MPC meeting today here at 1:30 at the Planning Commission, Arthur Mendonza hearing room. That doesn't come under this. There are items requested to be removed that will need a vote. I'm just going to read through them. There's quite a few. You have item number 4, special use, 2110 West Gwinnett Street. Item 5 is map amendment, 5659 Ageechee Road. Item 6, map amendment, 6089 Ageechee Road, Street. Item 7, map amendment, 925 and 1301 East President Street, as well as a portion of Tybee Depot. Item 8, map amendment, 543 Washington Avenue. Item 9, map amendment, Wild Heron Road, rezoned from A1 to RMF 1 and RSF 4. Item 10, map amendment, north side of Ageechee Road, west of Cane Break. Item 11, master plan, south end of the terminus of Cottonvale Road. Item 12, map amendment, 1712 Ageechee Road. Those items are requested to be removed from the final agenda. I need a motion.
Cole's motion to remove items 4 through 12 from the final agenda.
Second.
No, a second.
We'll do a verbal vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Is anybody in the audience here on any of those items? Okay, well, where they've been removed from today's meeting.
Are they going to be rescheduled?
Yeah. Marcus, answer that.
Yes, all of those items will be rescheduled for a future meeting. Is there a specific one you had a question about, ma'am?
The ones involving Georgetown?
Okay, yeah, let me give a quick statement on that, if I may. The applicant for that item, like many of these other items, requested recently that the item be postponed to a future meeting. That particular one will certainly not be on our next regular meeting, which is August 16th. But what we will do for that item is resend the notices that are required for a zoning petition and treat this essentially as a new item when it does come back. We believe it's likely to be September. We don't have a firm date yet, but we will notify the neighborhood again and go through the full process and treat it as a new zoning petition when it comes back.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Next, you have items requested to be withdrawn. Item 13, rezoning map amendment, Dillon Street, rezoned from RSF 4 to RSF 6. I need a motion.
Cole's motion to withdraw item 13.
No, a second.
Take a verbal vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Now we go to consent agenda. Item 14, approval of the June 14th, 2022 briefing regular meeting minutes. Need a motion?
Stevens, so moved.
Cole second.
Move to approve, excuse me.
Cole second.
Take a verbal vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Now we go to old business. Map amendment, 2180 East Victory Drive, rezoned from RMF 2-20 to RMF 2-45. Mr. Lotson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There we go. Sorry about that. This item is an item from old business. It was originally heard by the board during our May 24th regular meeting. The petitioner is requesting to rezone the subject property from the RMF 220 classification to RMF 245. This property is a multifamily zoned property now. The 20 at the end of the current zoning designates the amount of units per acre that are permitted under that classification. Thus, the applicant is proposing to rezone it for higher density than the current zoning permits, so to go from 20 units per acre to 45 units per acre. The subject property is located on the north side of Victory Drive and is developed with a residential structure that was constructed in the 1930s, is currently uninhabited. The property also includes 3 accessory buildings on site. This is a tax map that shows the boundaries of the subject property and the adjacent properties. This is the zoning map that identifies the subject property, which is under the RMF 220 designation, as is the adjacent multifamily development immediately to the east. On the west side of the subject property is the former St. Mary's Home for Girls, which now operates as the administrative offices for the Roman Catholic Diocese of Savannah. The adjacent property to the north and east is an existing multifamily development. It's approximately 150 dwelling units on approximately 9.5 acres. I should mention that prior to our May meeting, the applicant did reach out to the Victory Heights Neighborhood Association, which is the closest association in this area. They declined to have a neighborhood meeting. They did not feel that this potential rezoning impacted them. So they have met their notice requirement from that standpoint. In terms of the development pattern, properties along Victory Drive between Skidaway Road and Thunderbolt, primarily commercial, with the exception of the subject property and the adjacent multifamily development. With the exception of those properties, most of the uses in this area include retail, commercial, restaurants, and other service-oriented businesses. During our last hearing, one of the major talking points amongst the commission was related to the traffic patterns on Victory Drive, both the intensity of the traffic as well as the access to this property. I've got several photos in and around the subject property. This is looking east on Victory Drive. This is a photo of the existing structure that's on one of the existing structures that's on the property, the principal building there. This is looking toward Skidaway Road. The existing entrance to the property is located here. And this is from the principal building toward Victory Drive. And in this photo, you can see that Victory Drive is a 2-lane divided highway. There are no median breaks adjacent to this property. The next closest breaks are at the next intersection, which is signalized, and then the adjacent multifamily development, which I do have a picture of here. Yeah, so this is the next entrance into the adjacent property. As I mentioned, one of the reasons that the petition was continued was so that the applicant could investigate the opportunity, if there was one, to share an access point with this neighbor, which is the adjacent residential multifamily development. They've done that, as I understand it, and can fill you in on the outcomes of those conversations. In terms of the access pattern along this area, because there is no median break, looking at this closely, you'll know that eastbound traffic coming from town, essentially, to access this property would have to pass the property, go to the median break that we were just describing, make a U-turn, and then enter the property. So that was one of the issues that staff had as far as the access to the property and the proposed increased density from, under the current zoning, approximately 35 units and approximately 79 units under the proposed zoning. Because this portion of Victory Drive is a state-regulated highway, in our discussions with City of Savannah Traffic Engineering, they believe that an additional curb cut or median break is not likely at this location because of the traffic and because of the closeness of the existing signalized intersection at the entrance to the shopping center. Staff found that the existing multifamily residential zoning, including the permitted density, is appropriate at this location as it stands, and in review of the proposed increase in density, found that the property has limitations in terms of its overall size and vehicular access. From a land use standpoint, the location, we believe, can support residential units, but the limitations on the site have to be factored in with an increased density on this 1.7 acre site to 79 units, which is approximately 120% of what's currently allowed under the present zoning. So with those findings, staff is recommending denial of the request to change the zoning classification from RMF 220 to RMF 245.
Thank you, sir. Is petitioner here? Like to come forward? State your name for the record, and you have 20 minutes if need be, sir.
Thank you. Don't go far.
Okay.
Thank you. I told Marcus not to go far because, oops, I've already done something. Because I've never used this, and I've got tired of being ridiculed for bringing my papers in, so I'm going to try to use this today and do the best I can. My name is, I got it marked. My name is Philip McCorkle. I represent Jeff Natricka, who's obviously recused himself from this hearing, who owns this property and wants to build some small apartment units on it. As Marcus said, it's zoned multifamily, surrounded by multifamily, Catholic diocese, businesses. The comp plan says it's good for multifamily. The Victory Heights Neighborhood Association had no problem with it. We can build what we're asking to build with no variances, yet the staff recommends denial, which disappointed me. They said two things. The density is, quote, not consistent with the development pattern in the area, close quote, and they had traffic concerns. On the size of the units, development pattern, they go hand in glove, really. City Council's made it clear they made a policy decision in the new zoning ordinance to encourage smaller apartment units. You can build them as small as 450 square feet. They want them to be more affordable because, and the way to make them more affordable in the market is to make them smaller, and it reduces urban sprawl. So that they want to be near the central business area. They want to have smaller apartments, more people. People use the buses, and we have a bus stop 200 feet away. This is a perfect location to meet that goal that City Council has established. To quote the staff's objection, there are not examples of residential density in the vicinity similar to what is proposed. And I agree with that. There's not been an apartment built within a mile of this site since 1979. Apartments on the east side are direly needed, and the need is not being met. And when other apartments were built, there were limitations on unit density that have changed a good deal under the new zoning ordinance. Most apartments, when we started doing apartment rezonings, were 12 units per acre, 15 units per acre. They calculated acres different. It was net acres. Thank goodness on a new zone it's gross, so we don't have to argue about what a net acre is. But they were much smaller densities, and that's where they were built. But that's changing now. I've got two perfect examples. Live Oak Landing on Wheaton Street, right next to the new elementary school, right where Gwinnett Street dead ends into Wheaton Street, is rezoned RMF 240. And that's only a 3-floor building. If they added a fourth floor like we will, I'll show you in a minute, they would need RMF 253 to build the units that they're building there. But as a 3-story building, they needed RMF 240. The staff was concerned that we didn't have residential density in the vicinity of this Victory Drive property similar to what is proposed. I scanned all the zoning near this Wheaton Street that is zoned RMF 240, and the closest, the highest density I can find anywhere in the vicinity is RMF 216. So again, that project was approved and is being built. It's in phase 2. Phase 2 is almost finished with, and there's nothing like that in the vicinity, but that's what the city of Savannah is trying to achieve, is dense apartment dwellings, development. The second example is Ogeechee Place, which is on Highway 17 just west of Chatham Parkway. They're zoned RMF 240 as well. Now, it is a 4-story project with that zoning. Again, I looked at all the zoning in the vicinity, and the most dense multifamily zoning other than the Ogeechee Place, which is just a few months into construction, is RMF 215. So again, you can't find an example of anything that's RMF 240 in the immediate vicinity. So not finding an example of that on Victory Drive, to me, is not a factor that's, or a position that's a legitimate position. 45 units per gross acre is becoming very normal in the city of Savannah. You're going to see more of it. And this satisfies the council's desire for smaller, more affordable apartments and reduces urban sprawl. And that's the reason they adopted the ordinance as they did after years and years of effort. The other issue is traffic. I was asked 2 months ago to run to ground the issue of whether the apartment people next door, it's called Ascend Apartments now. When it was built, it was Alhambra. I lived on that side of town. I remember when it was built. And that's changed hands twice in the last 2.5 years. So I spent a month chasing my tail trying to find somebody to talk to, which I did find, with the new owner, who I believe is out of Tampa. And they have no interest in sharing their median break with us. Liability issues, competition issues, a number of issues. So I did what I was asked to do, and I failed. They will not allow us to use the median break. And I'm going to talk about traffic now because I believe that's the underlying reason that the staff is recommending denial. There are 2 issues raised by staff that are the same regardless of whether we build 36 units or 79 units. First one is the staff says we can't have multiple curb cuts and went to great lengths to find that out or ascertain whether that could be done. My response to that is that's a big so what. No matter what development goes here, is going to have 1 curb cut more than likely. I agree with that. The 2 phases of live oak apartments being built on Wheaton Street right now, hundreds of units, has 1 curb cut. Ogeechee Place on Ogeechee Road, again, many, many units, 1 curb cut. That's normal. So it's not as if having 1 curb cut is a detriment to an apartment development. The other thing was no median break. And again, whether it's a 36-unit multiple bedroom development or a 79-unit development, there's not going to be a median break, which is not unusual on Victory Drive. There is another residential development called Heritage Park Townhomes. They're 24 fee simple townhomes on Victory Drive, slightly east. They have no median break. Evergreen Street is the only access directly onto Victory Drive from the Victory Heights subdivision. And when Evergreen Street comes out, it hits Victory Drive, there's no median break. There are convenience stores, retail. There are many places that operate not only on Victory Drive, but all over the city without a median break. And again, no matter how many units we put there, there's not going to be a median break. And that's just something that we, as the property owner and developer, will live with, and the residents will have to live with. The last issue, in the final sentence of the staff write-up, it says, increased density will also increase conflicting vehicular movements on a busy arterial roadway. I disagree with that, and I think I can prove that's not true. It is, of course, a busy arterial roadway, and I don't disagree with that statement. They did have some wiggle room in their report because they said that the proposed development would create 39 a.m. peak hour trips and 48 p.m. peak hour trips. My calculations are slightly different, but not significantly. But they said this number may be lessened dependent upon the bedroom count, unit mix of any future multifamily development, which I think is an accurate statement. I'm going to try to operate this now, see if I can. You get your traffic counts from the ITE manual. This is the 11th edition, brand new, and it's shown on your screen here. This is one of the pages. This is multifamily housing, low rise, not close to rail transit. That's one of their categories. Low rise apartments are 1 to 3 floors high. Those are where you find most of your families. They don't have elevators. People walk up to the apartments. Usually they're 2 or 3 floors, obviously. The average trip generation per dwelling unit in the AM peak hour is 0.47. Not that that's a number that you need to memorize or anything, but I'm going to show you an example of how we're not creating the same type. Let's see. Okay, that's the bottom part of the page for the mid-rise. This is a mid-rise apartment unit or apartment development. It is 4 floors high, has elevators to get people in and up and down. And the reason you have less traffic in mid-rise units is you don't have the big families. You have couples, single people, maybe some older kids, retired people. And you can see the average rate is 0.35. So 0.47 for low-rise apartments, 0.35 for mid-rise apartments. So that's, and I'll demonstrate in a minute how that makes a difference in the total. This is a work from Mr. Lynch on the layout of the building, 4 floors high, got elevator, definitely a mid-rise type of complex. You can see it's got an odd shape like a J. That's because we're going to save the older building as the clubhouse, recreational area for the people who live there. There's a, how can I do this, Marcus? I can't get it to come down a little bit. I want to see the whole thing. This is the, thank you. You can see the, perfect. I knew I would need help. You see the clubhouse on Victory Drive, the upper left-hand corner, and then the J-shaped apartment units. The units marked number 1 are the 1-bedroom, and the units marked number 2 are the 2-bedroom. Easy to remember. So that's, again, the project that Mr. Natrick has been working on. Now this is really kind of brings all the information together on one piece of paper, which I can't quite, yeah, I'm getting better. Okay, traffic comparison. For 36 normal suburban apartment units, and the staff didn't have these numbers in the report at all. They did mention what the 79 unit mid-rise, or they didn't call it mid-rise, 79 units would create. But you're going to have, if you built a suburban complex, which my client's not going to do, 17 a.m. peak hour trips, 21 p.m. peak hour trips from all the units. If they built 79 units using the same 0.47 number, you'd have basically what the staff said, 37 a.m. peak hour, 45 p.m. peak hour. But in a mid-rise, which is 25% less traffic, you're going to have 28 in the morning and 31 in the afternoon. So the difference, not even considering the bedrooms, which we'll talk about in a second, In the morning, instead of 17 trips coming out of the apartment complex, it'd be 28. In the evening, instead of 21 going in, it'd be 31. So about every 6 minutes, there'd be an additional car pulling in. 10 cars per hour, about every 6 minutes. The average number of people living in a mid-rise apartment is 2.5, according to the ITE manual. They recognize, as staff did when they said that the calculations may be impacted by the bedroom count and the density, the ITE is saying, this is a quote from the newest 11th edition, it is expected that the number of bedrooms and number of residents are likely correlated to the trips generated by the site. To assist in future analysis, trip generation studies of all multifamily housing should attempt to obtain information on occupancy rate, the mix of residential unit sizes, i.e. the number of units by number of bedrooms. So they have not done that study yet, but they know they should, because it does impact how many people are going in and out of the apartment complex. According to Mr. Lynch, in the city of Savannah, in a one-bedroom apartment normally has 1.3 people. The ITE's calculations of 28 and 31 are based upon 2.5 people in an apartment. This development is going to have 70 one-bedroom units and 70% one-bedroom units, which I believe is 55, and 20% two-bedroom units. So there's going to be significantly less numbers of trips for the folks living in the one-bedroom apartments than in the normal 2.5 people living in a mid-rise. So I don't have an actual calculation from the ITE, but I would submit to you that there's absolutely insignificant difference in the number of people going in and out of this apartment complex if 70% of the units are one bedroom and 30% are two bedroom. I've informed staff in the meeting we had a couple weeks ago that my client would be willing to stipulate that 70% of the units would be one bedroom as a condition to the approval of the rezoning. So we wouldn't come in and say we want 79 units and then try to build 2 and 3 bedroom units. Couldn't do it anyway, not enough space, but we would submit to that condition, 70% one bedroom. So I believe, really, there's no difference in the amount of traffic this site's going to generate. You're going to have the same median rate issue, the same one entrance issue, neither of which are issues that we can't deal with. My client is not going to build a suburban, low-density apartment complex on this 1.77 acres. Plan B is because he believes that small units are direly needed. People that work, and particularly in the hospitality and retail industries, need a break on what they're paying for rent. So plan B for him is to build 36 3 or 4 bedroom units, depending on how the site lays out internally, which would create more traffic than the 70% one bedroom units he's trying to build now. His true desire is to build what he's showing, but if he needs to, he can build 36 units with 4 bedrooms, and people can live there in family units. People work together and know each other. So the low density is just an anachronism in this stage of development in the city of Savannah. We need small units, and this is a great place for one. I was excited when he bought this property. I remain excited. It's a good place to get some people who work and don't make a ton of money, a nice, clean place to live. We'd appreciate your recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Mr. McCorkle. Any questions from commissioners? Ms. Jarrett, for petition or staff?
First for staff. So the traffic that will be created here, they're going to have to work with the Alhambra people at that crossover on Victory, as well as the commercial property across the street in Thunderbolt, correct?
I don't think so. Let me pull up a exhibit that might show this. So, which one's best? Let's go to the aerial map. So right now, the subject property has a curb cut approximately at this location.
Yes.
Now, under redevelopment, that curb cut could be relocated to another portion of this property. But the crossing from the adjacent apartment complex is here, which they do not have access to and will not have access to.
And the goal is to get these people back and forth down to the central business district. This is not the central business district, is it?
It is not, no.
Okay. And the central business district is further to the west, correct?
Yes.
So when they leave, there will be no conflict. But when they return, they're all going to have to use that little median break to turn around or go down to the next median break to turn around, correct?
Yeah, I believe this will be a right-in, right-out access based on the flow
Agreed.
of traffic on Victory Drive. So it's likely that most of the people that would use this site would be taking a right out to go toward town, and they would have to, as I mentioned earlier, take this U-turn to enter the property unless they're coming, say, from the
So when they
islands.
take that U-turn, they're going to be conflicting with people who are trying to get into the Alhambra, who are trying to get out of the Alhambra, and across the street there is another business drive that lines up with that.
Here, yes.
So there will be a lot of conflicts there, correct?
Well, this movement does create more conflicts than exist there today. Yes.
Okay. And the more units we have, the more conflict there is.
Well, I think I
Even
would say
with
that the more
one-bedroom
trips
units.
that are created based on the development of the property would create the most conflicts.
And there will be more trips at 79 units than there will be at 36, whether there are 4-bedroom 36 units or 1-bedroom 79 units, correct?
Well, I think we'd need to know the mix of units in order to really answer that.
I don't think so. If you go back to what he had shown as far as the ITE manual goes, no matter what mix you talk about, and low-rise or high-rise, we're talking about one floor difference. So trying to say that he's in a high-rise as opposed to a low-rise is not exactly... I mean, we're talking statistics here.
Right, and that was for the purpose of calculating trips. So ITE apparently looks at a higher-rise building as a lower trip count.
Okay. Can we go back and look at the land use map?
Mm-hmm.
The land use map shows residential general.
Yes.
Help me out. What does residential general mean?
Residential general would support multifamily. It would support a townhome development. It would support a mixed-use residential
Would it support
development.
40 units per acre?
I'm sorry?
Would it support 40 units per acre? 45 units per acre?
I wouldn't say that it's specific to the number of units per acre.
Okay. So our land use map doesn't say this is RMF 20, this is RMF 45.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Ms. Jarrett, if I may, the land use plan does not go into specifics regarding the number of units. In this particular case, this property was given the general residential classification because there was already a building on the property and it's right next to multifamily apartments. So you could make the assumption that it is implied that the density would be somewhat comparable to the apartments that are right beside this particular property.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about the Wheaton Street property that was an example. The Wheaton Street traffic there is not Victory Drive, is it?
That's true. Wheaton Street would have fewer daily trips than Victory Drive at this location.
Okay, and Ogeechee Road, I'm not sure exactly where that is and what the configuration of roads around it is, whether it has a median cut there or not. But is it comparable as far as the traffic on Victory Drive?
I'm not exactly sure of the project that Mr. McCorkle was referring to, but generally Ogeechee Road and that vicinity near Chatham Parkway, I think as was described, is a 4-lane divided highway without a median. So I think traffic is very different there, probably similar in volume, in overall volume.
All right, thank you.
I would say there's more volume on Ageechee Road, 4 lanes, than you would Victory Drive by a long shot.
Even in this section of Victory Drive?
Yes, ma'am.
Morning traffic?
I've been on both at every times of the day, yes. Ageechee Road is hideous.
Since we don't have the statistics on that,
right,
it is difficult to say. Thank you.
Mr. Wayne Noah.
I just have a question for clarification from staff.
Yes, sir.
The petitioner stated the existing density and what could be built and the number of trips and what is projected and what could be built currently could be more trips. Are you in agreement with that?
I believe the statement you're referring to is the petitioner's description of a product that would be a more dense product from a standpoint of bedrooms per unit.
Correct.
And that his proposed project with fewer bedrooms would be a lower trip count.
I'm asking, do you agree with this statement with your knowledge of traffic counts?
I would say that I'm not in a position to agree or disagree with that statement because I have not really looked at the veracity of the calculations. Based on observation, I would say that 36 4-bedroom units roughly versus 79 1 or 2-bedroom units. You know, you have to figure out if a typical 4-bedroom apartment, if people are more likely to have cars versus people who are in 1 or 2-bedroom apartments, and I can't answer that.
Well, you would have 144 people, those 36 units, opposed to having 79.
And the people you can figure out, it's just a matter of the trips.
You know, so I would have to think there are less traffic for a single bedroom.
Except for there are going to be a lot of children who are in those 4-bedroom units.
But that's not what he's proposing to build.
Understood.
If I may, one of the things, too, that you also have to factor when looking at this is that you all are assuming that one person would live in the 1-bedroom unit when it is probably very likely that there will be 2 people living in that 1-bedroom unit. And that's why, you know, when you're calculating number of people based on density, you get a different number. You know, all of this is hypothetical. You probably would be a little bit cleaner if you did have 4-bedroom units with one person if they had a car living in that unit, but because it becomes a different type of product. So that's why it's difficult to specifically answer that question. But you could still have as much density, if not more, with the 79 units because you could have 2 people living in that unit, whereas in the 4-bedroom units, hopefully that would be something that would be more family-oriented, and you theoretically could have less if you've got somebody renting that with a family. Or if it ended up being something where you've got a roommate-type situation, you just don't know based on that number of units.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jim.
Yes, sir.
Following up on that, Ms. Wilson, theoretically, though hypothetically, as you said, with a 4-bedroom unit model that's geared more towards young professional living, one could theorize that there may be some units with 8 people living in those units, 2 per bedroom.
Exactly.
Just as much as we could say that 2 people would be living in a single 450 square foot unit. Correct?
I mean, that's correct. That's why I said that it depends on what model they are proposing to use. If they did the 36 4-bedroom units, if that's something that the applicant decides to do, you know, you end up with a little bit different type of situation with regards to what some of the minimum standards are based on a number of unrelated people that can live in an apartment which is part of your code. So it opened up additional questions that you all would have to delve into, because you do have rules with regards to the number of unrelated people that can live in one property. I think that for this issue, as we looked at it from a staff standpoint, we looked at it from the standpoint of public health safety. We looked at it, the fact that this is probably one of the main areas, roadways, that is used to get to Tybee Island. And we looked at the overall use. But as a board and as the city council, when it moves forward with whatever recommendation, you all can factor in a variety of things. I know that we reached out and talked with several of the folks at GDOT, and they have no interest in doing a median cut. So that's not something that that we feel will happen.
I have another question.
Ms. Jarrett?
Yeah, I wanted to ask the developer, has a professional looked at this? Someone other than a planner or an attorney or a retired engineer? Have you had a traffic engineer look at it yet and give you their...
No, I don't understand the question about retired engineer, but anyway.
I'm a retired engineer.
Yes, we have... I can't ask Mr. Natrick a question because he's not supposed to be here, but we have no problem with engineering. Ms. Jarrett, let me go back to the question you asked before. It doesn't matter how many units there are, the same issues are going to be there. The U-turn,
Understood.
the left turn. And frankly, I've been thinking about this for months. If I were coming home from work and I lived here, I'd go down Bonaventure Road to Frank Downey Drive, up to 50 Drive, and I'd turn right and I'd go right in there. You adopt to what the world gives you. And if you don't believe that's true, go look what truck drivers do.
No, I hear what you're saying.
And so people would find a way without doing a U-turn, no matter how many units there are. And I strongly disagree with the statement from the director that just because this is next to Alhambra, that the future land use plan, the comprehensive plan, implies in some way that it should have the same density. That's just not true.
She didn't imply that.
She did say that. It's
well,
just not
that's
true.
not what I heard.
Well, that's what she said. So the issues are going to be the same. And if you look at the number of bedrooms, under our proposal, 70% 2 bedrooms, 30% 1 bedroom, excuse me, I got it back, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, that's 103 bedrooms. If you did 36 units with 3 bedrooms, that's 108. If you did a low rise, which would be a suburban type development, which my client has no interest in, be 70% 2 bedroom, 30% 3 bedrooms, a normal mix. That's 83 bedrooms. So we're proposing 103, suburban would be 83, professional, student, retail, hospitality workers would be 144. My client wants to provide affordable, smaller units, and we can quibble where the central business district is. I think the affordable housing study said it stops at Skidway or Truman Parkway, so it's half a mile away. But it's still, these folks will be in the city of Savannah, just like Ogeechee Road is not the central business district, just like Wheaton Street is not in the central business district.
I have no problem with affordable housing. What I have a problem with is public safety. And to me, the configuration of the drives in and out of this building are not safe.
Well, it's going to be that way whether it's 36 units or 79 units.
Yes, but you add more traffic, you add more potential.
I think I've demonstrated that you don't really add more traffic.
Anybody else? And I will also make note that a lot of people take the Truman Parkway to President Street now, especially with the new bridge, to get to Tybee. All you do is watch the news recently. A lot of people do not go through Thunderbolt to go to Tybee as much as they used to in the past. That's a known fact. Any further discussion? Any questions? Anybody in the audience? Yes, ma'am. Please come to the podium and state your name for the record. And I'll allow you 5 minutes time, please.
Thank you. My name is Artis Wood. I am chair of Scenic Chatham, which is an affiliate of Scenic America. Find more info about that at scenic.org. I want to point out that 10 years ago, about $100,000 was put up by the city and county to do a study of Victory Drive. It was very thorough. It was done by people like Denise Grabowski and others who are very professional. And it talked about the big picture. So I suggest that we consider the big picture here, not just a piece by piece when you look at Victory Drive. There's a pattern language to that. And in order to explain that, I have something to show you. I apologize for putting my back to you, but apparently that's the way this is going to work, and I'll come back and look at you face to face after I do this. Is that set up properly?
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
is there a way for the cameras to project what she's drawing on those screens?
They're on.
Thank you.
I'll turn it around after we finish. There's something called pattern language in development and urban design. And the pattern language of Victory Drive is that you have the median. You have palm trees, at one time the longest palm tree drive in the country, and that you have a lovely double canopy made up by the live oaks on either side of Victory Drive. That gives you a sense of place, if ever there was, in Savannah. And it's been nibbled away. They tried to nibble away Liberty once, Liberty Street, the traffic people heard you wanted a lot more room for traffic, so they almost took out that median on Liberty. And some local folks paying attention to what was going on said, we don't want that, and so it's there. I think we would agree that we want to keep this pattern language of Victory Drive as well. In fact, there is a law that has been reinstated by the feds, thanks to Scenic America. I give them credit for this. And there are millions of dollars now available after 12 years of stopping scenic byways. And there's at least one, if not more, aldermen who want to see this again made as or create a scenic byway here, which means a lot of good things, including the ability to make it more beautiful and funds to do that. And also you get a lot more people wanting to drive this in a very happy way. So commercially, it's good as well. Now, when you develop something along here, you have to allow, because of GDOT, a deceleration lane and an acceleration lane. So let's say here we are putting up whatever. They say, well, you've got to cut this out, and then you've got to have the acceleration lane. And so this comes out. We're removing a bit of that pattern language. And this has been done again and again over the last few years. Nobody bothers to put back trees, and it's breaking this wonderful design. So I would say that we don't want to keep going in that direction. And now, should we turn this around? The mention of, oops. I appreciate the mention of Ogeechee and, Ogeechee and Wheaton. Because, yes, they are without a median, and I imagine a lot of places, if I recall, have a turn lane, so that people can turn as they want to. Even though it may not be as busy, it's much more accessible to turning. The staff report, I want to make sure you remember what they said. The access to the property along East Victory Drive is a condition that gives supporting grounds for disapproval. The width of the property and proximity to other intersections would not likely allow multiple curb cuts, which would also be required by GDOT, as we mentioned. And we have the property has limitations related to the overall size and vehicle access. And finally, based upon the site concerns and character of the area, as well as the review criteria, staff recommends denial of the rezoning request as submitted. You have any thoughts, questions?
Anybody have any questions for her?
Well, thank you for looking at this in context, because it's a special place and it can get nibbled away or it can bit by bit be improved. Don't forget that study that was done and use it every time you talk about doing anything on Victory Drive. Don't let it just sit on the shelf. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Is anybody on the computer in the audience? If so, on this matter, raise your hand feature on your computer. No. Okay. Any discussion with commissioners? No.
Wait a minute. I am not opposed to affordable housing. It just doesn't seem to be the proper place for a high-density apartment.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jay.
Yes, Mr. Mulder.
I think, from the city's traffic and planning perspective, we certainly don't mind the density here. I think we just would like to make sure that the traffic plan was analyzed and approved by GDOT. I think that the petitioner was correct in saying that, NUZA kind of laid out these new guidelines and to create, less urban sprawl and more density. I think we have a chance to perhaps do that with this project, but I do think that the traffic concerns are there. So, from my perspective, I wouldn't mind approving the density just so long as that traffic analysis was reviewed and approved by GDOT, who owns the road.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Jarrett?
Wouldn't it be worthwhile to have that study done before we approve that much density?
I'm fine with that as well.
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Mr. Mulder?
I would be fine with that as well, Ms. Jarrett.
Mr. Bowles?
This is Travis Coles. The thoughts that I had was I appreciate Ms. Wood and what she does on the scenic Chatham. I think the curb cuts are basically by right anyway as it stands now, so I don't think that's really within our purview to say he can't have more than one curb cut. I have concerns about the traffic as well, but I appreciate that the petitioner is retaining the contributing structure on the property. And I also, if we do move forward with recommendation, appreciate that he would commit to the specific breakdown of 1 bedrooms versus 2 bedrooms.
Mm-hmm. Any other further comments? Mr. McCorkle, we've already had you had your chance. I'm not trying to. Okay. If somebody'd like to make a motion?
Move to continue this until the traffic study has been made available.
I'll second that, but I have a comment. Is there anything else we need? This came up before, and we told them to talk to Alhambra and try to get an entrance there. This coming back. I mean, time is money, money is time. Is there anything else that we need to ask the petitioner or staff to do before this comes back?
Is there anything?
Perhaps the petitioner could come back with a specific bedroom count, break down a studio or 1 and 2 bedrooms,
Mr. McCorkle, I'll allow you to make a comment on that.
Yes, I have a specific count somewhere in my notes. 70% one bedroom, I believe, was 55, and the two bedroom units is 24. So that would be 70-30. Can I make a comment on the traffic study as well, since I'm standing up here, Mr.
You got 1 minute.
30 seconds. Approving the rezoning contingent upon a traffic study which is acceptable to City Council, which we would have to go to DOT first, deal with DOT, take it to City Council. It may delay us getting the vote on City Council, but I'd like to move it past today if possible and have it contingent upon an acceptable traffic study and analysis by DOT, which the City Council could then review when it came before them, if possible.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Coleman?
Yes, Mr.
Welcome.
Chair, thank you. I just wanted to say I'd like to abstain from voting on this petition as I was not here to hear any of the testimony.
That'll be fine, sir. Thank you for being here, too. I tend to agree with Mr. McCorkle on that. If somebody'd like to... You want to rescind your motion?
I'll let somebody else take a shot.
So you rescind yours?
I guess.
And you rescind yours? Nicole's make the motion to conditionally approve, well, no, it's not the staff's recommendation, so conditionally approve the petitioner's petition to amend the zoning to the 45-unit category pending a satisfactory traffic study satisfactory to City Council. Sorry, I know that's very messy, but is that clear enough?
Need a second?
I'll second.
I don't think they do have to do it. They don't have to have a traffic study. Yes. It should.
All right, we'll go to a vote. Mr. Coles?
Yes.
Ms. Elizabeth Epstein?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Irvin?
Yes.
Ms. Karen Jarrett?
No.
Mr. Jay Melder?
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Noah?
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Stevens?
Yes.
Did I miss anybody? Mr. Joe Welch? Yes. Motion passes.
For clarification, is that based on the proposed bedroom count that was offered by the...
That was my intent.
Okay. I just want to make sure that that's clear for the record, that it was based on the bedroom count.
That Mr. McCorkle presented. Now we go into regular business. Text amendment, streetcar district boundary amendment. Welcome, Ms. Bridget Liddy.
Thank you. This is Leah Mahalik, Director of Historic Preservation.
And in the audience is Ms. Bridget Liddy for the mayor and alderman of the city of Savannah. Thank you for being here today, ma'am. Okay.
Sorry, just bear with me 1 second. All right, so this is a petition to revise Figure 7.11-1, which is the streetcar historic buildings map, historic boundary map, to feature an expanded boundary. The boundary expansion includes an area south of Victory Drive to the east of the SCAD 1 West Victory Complex. It's this triangular section right here, and that's it. It consists of one parcel and one building, and that is 2805 Bull Street, here formerly known as Canine Palace. So this is a second part of a historic building map amendment that happened in January, that you all approved in January, to add 9 contributing buildings to the Streetcar Historic District. So those buildings have been added. And the second part of this change will be to change the boundary, as I mentioned, to include this one parcel here that was added as a contributing building. And then there are actually 2 parts to this. One, to amend the boundary physically on the map, and 2, to amend the text language of the boundary, which you can see. These are spread over 2 sections. So that would be here. This would change the text language of the boundary description to include that parcel. So that's why it's listed as 2 petitions on your agenda. So as I mentioned, in January, you all recommended approval to City Council to include the 9 buildings, including the one I just showed you, which was built in 1937. And City Council subsequently approved that as well. So I'm going to go through a little bit of our findings, and that's that the boundary expansion was analyzed by the MPC preservation staff following the survey of those expansion areas where we added the 9 buildings. And staff used guidelines and criteria from the document from the National Park Service called How to Complete the National Register Registration Form. And one of the statements in there is that the boundaries must be based upon a shared relationship among the properties constituting the district. In 2018, with the Victory Village expansion, it did not include this one parcel, and basically it should have. So that is another reason that we're moving this boundary. So the expansion of the historic district boundary toward Bull Street will provide for the inclusion of this contributing resource and make a consistent boundary, which you can see here instead of this odd cutoff that it had before. So the policy analysis, state enabling legislation provides for the protection, enhancement, and use of places, districts, sites, and buildings that have a special historic, cultural, aesthetic interest or value. And that's right in the state law that created these districts and maps. And periodic evaluation of the boundaries is part of that mission. Staff is recommending approval to revise the boundary map as well as the boundary description. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. At my first meeting, I was here when we...
State your name, please.
This is Jeff Notrica. At the first meeting when I was here, we did the 9 properties to add them to the historic. That got voted on and approved.
Yes.
At the next meeting, there was a subsequent group of 7 properties that were going to be added. After that meeting, Leah came up and apologized and said that, in fact, this was not the proper venue to bring those properties through, that they needed to come through the HPC.
That was a different district. That was a different historic district. And that project has since been withdrawn.
It was different in what way?
That was the Victorian Historic District. This is the Streetcar Historic District.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Is there any commissioner online that has a question?
Mr. Chair, I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
This is Dwayne Stevens. I believe the text amendment is a separate petition, right? On the agenda?
Right.
Okay.
So they have to be 2. I presented them both at the same time,
right,
but they have to have 2 separate file numbers.
Okay.
So.
For the text amendment, if you would pull that back up, please.
Mm-hmm. Sure. It's one of these.
I just want to be clear that I'm understanding the language. So where it says exception of an area, can you kind of clarify that? Because just based off of us adding this additional building, I want to make sure that I'm understanding that language to be inclusive instead of exclusive.
Right. So what it says is that it shall follow the National Register Historic District boundaries with the exception of that area, because that area is not in the National Register boundaries.
Gotcha. Thank you for that clarification.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question.
Yes, please.
On the text amendment, do we need to, on that last sentence, I think we believe that we need to add Bingville to that list, so the last sentence should read, the streetcar historic district includes Thomas Square, Metropolitan, and portions of the Baldwin Park, Bingville, and Midtown neighborhoods. And wanted to ask staff's opinion on that.
Is this portion here Bingville?
Mm-hmm.
Then, yeah, I suppose that should have been added when Victory Village was added as well then. So that certainly could be amended as well. Where did it go? There it is. So yes, if that was added with Victory Village, then certainly we could add that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm, thank you.
Can you go back to that map and show the Midtown neighborhoods? How far down are we talking?
So it's the historic district names and boundaries are different than the city neighborhood names. So I don't know specifically where like the city delineation of Midtown is, but it's on this side of the district. Okay. Metropolitan is somewhere around here. And they flow into some of these other areas too.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. Is there a district?
State your name, please.
Wait, no, sorry. Is there a district to the east of this where that, I'm thinking that Maupaw and 41st Street and Lane, why is that corner left out? Is that not, I mean, is it part of another district?
It is. So this follows the National Register boundary. And this area is actually part of the National Register Ardsley Park District.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Any further questions? Is anybody in the audience on this? I wouldn't think so. Nobody on the computer? Okay. Nobody else to come forward? Okay. Are you covering 16 and 17 at
Yes,
the same
sir.
time? Okay. All right, then if no other questions, I look for a motion.
Move to approve items 16 and 17 per staff recommendation.
Cole,
Do both of them
second.
at the same time?
Yeah, we're going to do 16 and 17 at the same time. Yes, ma'am.
Cole, second.
I'll just do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
The addition of portions of Bingville neighborhood.
Amend my motion to include that language.
And I'll still second Cole's.
Go ahead and amend it. He was talking when you said that, Ms. Jarrett.
Move to approve 16 and 17 with the inclusion on the the language to include Bingville neighborhood as well.
Cole, second.
We'll just do a verbal vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is item 18. Text amendment section 7-13-1, Hotel Development Overlay District.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Melissa Leto. Let me open up some items here. Okay. On June 7th, 2022, Harold Yellen, agent for Christian Chambly for the Manger Building, LLC, submitted a text amendment request to the City of Savannah to amend the Savannah Historic District Hotel Development Overlay District map 7.13-1, which is here on the screen, to include a portion of Bull Street and Congress Street. So I'm going to show you specifically what his proposal is. To include a portion of Bull Street and Congress Street as streets where hotels are permitted. The request is to allow the Manger building located at 7 East Congress Street on the corner of Congress and Bull Street to be restored and reestablished as its original hotel use from 1912 through 1977. MPC staff began researching through historical files as well as Sanborn maps to find other existing buildings located within the Savannah Historic District Hotel Development Overlay District that were once a hotel and may in the future want to be a hotel once again. Staff's research found that there are 2 existing historic buildings located within the Savannah Historic District Hotel Development Overlay District that were once hotels. For example, Moon River Brewing Company located at 21 West Bay Street and the Manger building located at 7 East Congress Street, which was originally addressed as 32 Bull Street. MPC staff met with the applicant to discuss altering the text amendment request to add a portion of Congress and Bull Streets to the Savannah Historic District Hotel Development Overlay District. As Bay Street is currently an identified street within the Savannah Historic District Hotel Development Overlay District, the Moon River Brewing Company, located at 21 West Bay Street, currently has the right to reestablish the existing building to a hotel use once again, leaving the Manger building as the one remaining existing historic building that was once a hotel and is located within the Savannah Historic District Hotel Development Overlay District. The applicant and staff have agreed the best direction would be to include an additional condition in Section 7.13.5 Hotel Use Conditions to allow for a reestablishment of a historic district. Staff's proposal is, let me open this up. Staff's proposal is to amend the Savannah zoning ordinance relative to reestablishment of historic hotels within the Hotel Development Overlay District to include existing contributing buildings located within the Hotel Development Overlay District that were converted from hotels to another conforming use within the period of significance, which is 1733 through 1960, as defined in Section 7.8.5, and may be reestablished as a hotel use once again. In the Savannah zoning ordinance, new hotels are permitted only within the designated areas as shown in the map here. The intent of this overlay district is to establish standards to guide the size and location of future hotel development within the Savannah Historic District. The overlay district distinguishes hotel categories by large hotels, 75 guest rooms or more, and small hotels, 16 to 74 guest rooms. To give you some background on the ordinance, and the reasoning for it, on November 21st, 2017, City Council approved a text amendment based on the mayor and alderman's concerns regarding an increase in hotel development in the Savannah Historic District, particularly with regards to impacts on residential areas and the possibility that hotel development may discourage new residential development. A study was undertaken by MPC staff that identified regulations and policies that could make hotel development easier to pursue than residential development. The Savannah Development and Renewal Authority and city staff prepared a residential study that later led to the text amendment that was approved on November 21st, 2017, to eliminate residential density requirements for the Savannah Historic District. As part of the study, MPC was also requested to provide text amendments to determine areas where large and small hotels would be most appropriate. On January 12, 2018, The Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of the Hotel Development Overlay District and Lodging Establishments text amendment. The following month, City Council approved the amendment on February 1st, 2018 to the zoning ordinance regarding the Hotel Development Overlay District and lodging establishments. The Savannah Historic District Hotel Development Overlay District shows where hotels are permitted. Locations were regulated according to size, as I said, with small hotels being 16 to 74 rooms and large hotels being 75 rooms or more. Those are shown in green. The small hotels are shown in yellow on the map, and large hotels are shown in green on the map. And the pinkish red areas are indicated that areas that are hotels are not permitted at all. Locations are further restricted by streets. Hotels must be located on one of the streets or lanes identified on the map. They include all or portions of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, Montgomery Street, Whitaker Street, Drayton Street, Abercorn Street, Bay to Oglethorpe, Pham Street, Ann Street, River Street, Indian Street, Bay Street, Bryan Street west of Lincoln, Broughton Street, Oglethorpe Avenue, Liberty Street, Zubley Street, Turner Boulevard, Louisville Road, and Jones Street west of MLK. The proposed ordinance allows an existing contributing building that is located within the Hotel Development Overlay District that historically was once a hotel and has since been converted into another conforming use within the period of significance to be reestablished once again. It is important, however, that the Historic Preservation Officer shall validate the historic use prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. The proposed ordinance does not apply to vacant lots and non-contributing buildings. It only applies to existing contributing buildings within the Hotel Development Overlay District. And in red is what we are proposing to include in the text amendment. MPC staff recommends denial of the applicant's text amendment request to amend the Savannah Historic District Hotel Development Overlay District map 7.13-1 to include a portion of Bull Street and Congress Street as streets where hotels are permitted. Instead, we are recommending approval of the alternative amendment to allow existing contributing buildings located within the Hotel Development Overlay District that were converted from hotels to another conforming use within the period of significance as defined in Section 7.8.5 that may be reestablished as a hotel use again. And that is all. Any questions, please?
Thank you. Mr. Yellen, I know you'd like to come forward.
Sorry.
You're allotted 20 minutes if need be. State your name for the record, sir.
Thank you for the record, Harold Yellen. I'll need about 2 minutes. I'm here today on behalf of the owners of the Menger building, and with me today is Mr. Pritpal Singh, who's here on behalf of the developers of the site, Geyer Capital and Left Lane Development Company. The petition before you today is a text amendment, and the sole purpose of the text amendment is to permit the Menger building to be restored as the Menger Hotel. As noted by the MPC staff, the Menger was built in 1912. I'm looking around the room, and I may be the only person old enough to have actually been in the Menger Hotel. But it did operate as a hotel from 1912 until it closed in 1977. We looked at the City of Savannah zoning ordinance and thought that the path of least resistance was to simply do a very simple street map amendment, show the portion of Congress Street where the hotel will go, and that would be the end of it. MPC staff disagrees with that approach, and I understand why they're doing what they're doing, and they understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, but they would prefer to add a section permitting the reestablishment of an historical hotel that's already in the Hotel Overlay District. I think at the end of the day, we are literally two sides of the same coin with virtually identical results. So for that reason, we do support the staff version before you today. I don't know whether I should withdraw my petition or just tell you that given the choice, we're now in agreement with staff and we would fully support the text amendment presented to you by MPC staff. So with that, we conclude, and we're happy to answer any questions that y'all may have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from any commissioner? On computer? Anybody in the audience wish to come speak on this matter? Did you turn in a speaker card? That's okay. Just
So you want to come up while she's filling it out?
state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. I'm Sue Adler, CEO of Historic Savannah Foundation. With me today is Ryan Jarls, who is HSF's new Director of Historic Preservation and Historic Properties. We are in support of bringing this beautiful hotel back to how it was originally, and we just wanted to state that for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. State your name for the record, please. You have 3 minutes if need be.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ellen Harris. I am here representing the Downtown Neighborhood Association and just have a few comments to make regarding this petition. As Ms. Letta noted, the hotel map was adopted in 2018, which was just 4 years ago, and it was adopted after a diverse group of stakeholders was assembled, and it included representatives from the Downtown Neighborhood Association, Historic Savannah Foundation, city staff, et cetera. Among others. The hotel map overlay was created by this group after multiple meetings and had the consensus of all those stakeholders. At the time, it was a comprehensive, thoughtful, diverse, and very deliberative process. I believe that this is the first petition that's come forward since it was its adoption, proposing to amend the map and the overlay. And the Downtown Neighborhood Association is strongly in opposition to amending the hotel map and overlay as it is currently proposed. We feel that the hotel map and overlay is working well, and it's an existing configuration. And if we start amending it based on each individual petition that comes in, it erodes the process and the integrity of the original proposal that when it was created. If the hotel map and overlay are in need of being updated or being amended, we're certainly not opposed to this or to this particular project. We just feel like it should be done in a comprehensive and inclusive and thoughtful, deliberative way. So we urge you to continue this petition to allow for that to happen.
Thank you.
Are you in agreement with the staff's alternative recommendation?
Well, I mean, I would like to have the opportunity to discuss it with, more folks around the table. To be honest with you, I think that there's merit there. My initial thought is I would be concerned of whether that, if the hotel use was ever there historically. For example, if it was there for 1 year in 1950, a building, is used as a hotel, and then it's not anymore. Does that grandfather it in the future to be reestablished? That didn't seem to be addressed to me. Things like that I just feel could benefit from a broader group discussion.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, members, I'm Michael Owens. I don't have a speaker card. May I proceed?
Yeah, I'll give you 3 minutes.
I apologize for not doing that. I'm Michael Owens. I'm the CEO of the Tourism Leadership Council. I think I'm the only person in the room that was involved in the hotel development overlay creation. It's the only other time I have addressed this council in my career of 10 years of doing this with the TLC. We have a different interpretation, and note that the top of that document says hotel development overlay. It was our understanding at that time that we were talking about new construction that would need to fit in, not existing buildings. That building predates all of us here. It was a hotel. I speak and rise on behalf of this use and returning it to its original historic use. We do absolutely ratify and continue to agree and endorse with that hotel development overlay, new construction, the development thereof. We do not feel like this case falls into that category or the plan that we created as a community, as this use already existed in a building that already exists and is already taken into account in the plan of this city. So we support this being returned to its original use without reservation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions for staff or petitioner? Anybody on the computer? Anybody else in the audience? Okay.
I'll follow up with one comment. Just one quick item. I think not including the street with the Menger Hotel was a clear oversight, and I was also on that committee, Mr. Owens, with you. And so it was a large discussion about new hotels and where they should go, and how new hotels should not go and should not be intrusive on residential neighborhoods. I'd like to remind everyone this is Johnson Square, and I can't even begin to tell you where the nearest residence would be on Johnson Square. The idea that NUZA would be cast in stone and never modified, or that the hotel overlay district or the street map would never be modified, does not make sense to me. And in fact, Ms. Liddy is actually looking at additional maps now where she will be extending hotel overlay and prohibiting hotels in other districts. So as we speak, there is at least some movement underway to continue to modify the map in a way that would actually prohibit hotels. So the idea that that map would stand still and never be changed to me doesn't make any sense. Zoning ordinances are breathing, living, dynamic works, and what's before you today is really nothing more than an attempt, as I said earlier, to take a building, the Menger building, and return it to being the Menger Hotel, and there's only one way to do it, and that's what's before you today. So with that, I'll conclude again, but we're happy to answer any questions y'all may have, and we do once again support staff alternative to what was our petition, which was more straightforward and simplistic, and we appreciate the effort of MPC staff to come up with something more comprehensive. Again, thank you to the staff. Thank you, Ms. Wilson, and to Melissa.
Thank you. Mr. Travis Coles?
Just a little discussion. I believe the staff had said, to the point of being concerned about other properties being used, the only two that they found that qualified under these guidelines were Moon River and this building. That's correct, right? So the only other possible building that would come before us again to say, well, we were a hotel once, would be Moon River.
Well, that's why we left also the option of stating that the historic preservation officer shall validate the historic use prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. So just in case there is some missing hotel out there that we didn't identify.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Dwayne Stevens, Ms. Leto, before you leave from up there. So that in mind, with the historic preservation officer verifying, are we clear and specifying the period of verification or whether it was the initial use? Is that the intent for it being the initial use or it having been used for that function for a period of an extended period of time?
I think the specifics are that it needs to have been constructed within the period of significance, which is the 1733 through 1960.
But I guess what I'm trying to get clarified is it constructed in this period of significance and that being the initial use?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And
cool.
It's still there. It's still currently here as an existing building as well.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Wayne Noah? No? Anybody else? Mr. Notrika?
No.
You got your mic on, that's why I asked.
I'm just ready to.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further discussion?
One question.
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering if the petitioner, because I do agree with staff recommendation here, wondering if the petitioner would agree to meeting with that stakeholder group prior to this issue going before council to explain the text amendment and the uses and restoring the Menger Hotel.
Yes, sir. I will immediately after this meeting get together with Ms. Harris and we'll come up with a time to meet.
Good deal.
It would be our pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melder. Mr. Wayne Noah?
Ms. Leto, just for clarity, I may have missed it. Initial use or use during that period as a hotel? I mean, it could have been used for 2 years as a hotel. Does that qualify it? Or is it the initial use being a hotel? Because I thought that's where he was going, but it never was answered.
I would say the initial use of the building. Or did I say that?
Mr. Noah, I think because this question has become a question that seems to be unclear, it might be important for, if there's a motion made to adopt this, that that be made clear in the motion, if that's the board's will, because I think the way it's currently written, it may not be as specific to answer that question in the language.
Right.
But if that's the board's position, then I think that should be made clear in the motion.
I would agree, and this is Mr. Stevens speaking again, and the reason being, and that was my line of questioning, because that was a very valid point raised by Ms. Harris, as if it was used for 1 year and it had a booming year as a hotel, and a lot of people remember it, and it is indeed in the period of significance, it could definitely become an argument of a point of argument, and it may not be best serving us going future.
Right. So if there's some contributing building out there that was built as an apartment building, became a hotel 20 years later, operated as a hotel for a while, and then converted back to an apartment building, I think that's the point you're trying to get to.
Correct. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all very much. No further discussion?
Just if we're going to move forward with the motion, are we wanting to put a number of years that it was used as a hotel? And is it going to be arbitrary, or is this something that we should wait for staff to figure out what would be appropriate?
It could be.
Because we could put out there 10 years, but that may not be what would be appropriate.
But excuse me, when we talked about this as a staff, the thought was that that the building was built initially for use as a hotel, and I think that if we put that specific language in there, that would at least address some of the concerns that I've heard. We did do some research looking at the number of properties within the current district that would be able to be converted if they decided to move forward with that. The conversion process was not only just on the dates, but it's also the type of street that was used to make the determination of what buildings could be converted. So that's why we recommended and moved forward with the alternative. It gets the applicant what they initially wanted, but it also protects the integrity of the actual map itself.
Okay. Mr. Coleman?
I think that we're getting into the minutiae of some things relative to whether the building was originally used as a hotel versus sometime during the period of significance, because any reason why it might have stopped being a hotel might have had nothing to do with anything other than economics at the time. And we're starting to say, well, how do you start defining why someone switched the use of a building? So I think that the way this is written is adequate. And if something comes up, we have something where the preservation officer will do an evaluation of the historic use, and I think that's enough and gives the leeway to determine just whether this would be appropriate to fall under this classification or not, without us trying to micromanage this process.
Okay. Any further discussion? Look for a motion.
I'd like to motion that we go with the staff's recommendation and approve it.
Cole's second.
Go to a vote. Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Travis Coles?
Yes.
Ms. Elizabeth Epstein?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Urban?
Yes.
Ms. Karen Jarrett?
Yes.
Mr. Jay Melder?
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Noah?
Yes.
Mr. Jeff Notrica?
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Joe Welch, yes. And is Laureen Bowles online today? No? Okay. Okay, thank you. My motion passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 19, map amendment, Fountain Road, rezoned from RA, which is residential agriculture, to B, business.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Jaquel Johnson. I'm a staff member here at the MPC. Before you, I have unaddressed Fountain Road. The petitioners are Kenneth and Sherry Evans. The subject property is located in unincorporated Chatham County. The zoning is currently RA, residential agriculture, and is being requested to be rezoned as B for business. As you can see on the vicinity map, the subject property is located just south of 204 along 17. And the tax map shows the boundaries of the subject property. The zoning map demonstrates how it is currently located in RA, business to the north, planned community business to the east, and northwest also planned community business. This is the aerial map of the property. The property is currently undeveloped, as well as the properties adjacent to it. And the future land use of the subject property is residential, suburban, single family, while it's surrounded by commercial, regional. And just to give the board a visual, this is Ogeechee Road and Fountain, where it intersects. Going down Fountain Road, as you can see, there is residential heading south. Continuing down Fountain Road, as you can see, it's still residential in the undeveloped parcels. And on the right is the subject property in question. And continuing down Fountain Road, it dead ends into Keller Flea Market Drive. The subject property is undeveloped parcel near the south side of Fountain Road and Keller's Flea Market Drive. On the southern boundary, the property abuts residential dwellings. And excuse me if I butcher this word, Clio Circle. Fountain Road provides vehicular access to the subject property, which does not have access to Keller Flea Market Drive, and Fountain Road deads into Keller Flea Market Drive. Fountain Road has a paved width of less than 20 feet and has 2 lanes. The property has a total of area of 2.17 acres. It does not appear that any zoning actions have been taking place on this property since the zoning was adopted in Chatham County. The property is served by the Chatham County Police Department and Chatham Emergency Services. Water and sewer are not available at the subject property. Any development would require well and septic until time public facilities become available. Public transit is available along Ogeechee via Route 17. There's one bus stop along Ogeechee Road between Fountain and Keller Flea Market Drive, right in this area. The proposed zoning could generate an extensive amount of traffic based on the uses allowed in business zoning district, which Fountain Road cannot accommodate. Some of these uses include manufactured home sale lots, automobile and container storage yards, warehousing, recreational vehicle sales and service. The proposed zoning allows a mixed use that are heavy commercial. If adverse impacts occur, it will more than likely be to the residential east and west of the property. The proposed zoning and permitted use would be incompatible with the area. The land use development along Fountain Road primarily consists of residencies. The proposed zoning would increase traffic volumes, specifically truck traffic volumes. The intersection of Fountain Road and Ogeechee Road is unsignalized, multi-way intersection. The proposed zoning would not impact the provisions of services. There are no water and sewer services available at this location. The proposed zoning district's permitted uses of scale of development would adversely impact the future development of the adjacent properties. Due to the fact of potential traffic and environmental issues associated with the proposed zoning, the proposed zoning is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. The existing zoning district was established to promote rural residential development and protect certain rural highway roadside areas against strip development, which can lead to traffic congestion, hazards, roadside blight. Although the parcels on the north of Fountain Road are currently zoned community business and business, the development pattern in the vicinity is residential. The proposed zoning district promotes heavy commercial and certain industrial-like activities, such as truck stops, cocktail lounge, nightclub, certain adult entertainment establishment, and the petitioner's proposed use, truck storage, as well as office. These uses are more compatible in the zoning, such as light or heavy industrial. Fountain Road operates as a divider between business and residential. Furthermore, property zoned as business front on Highway 17. Staff finds that the subject property will be more appropriately be developed under existing zoning, and the proposed zoning could result in less desirable development outcome in Chatham County. In addition, Fountain Road is designed to accommodate traffic generated from RA uses and not the potential traffic of B zoning uses. The heavy usage of the traffic generated by B zoning would quickly deteriorate the current condition of the road. Furthermore, Keller Flea Market Drive does not generate heavier than normal traffic. It is only operational on weekends. Based upon the finding outlined in the report and the review criteria, staff recommends denial of the request zone from property RA to B. Staff is now available for questions, and I believe the petitioner is here as well.
Yes, sir.
Petitioner like to come forward?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Please state your name for the record. And
Ken Evans, owner of the property.
20 minutes if you need it.
Yes, sir.
Evans.
I run a business, Evans Asphalt and Concrete. We run about 12 employees and 10 trucks. These are mostly pickup trucks. We do have an F650 dump truck. We do a lot of patching and things like that. We've done thermoplastic work for the county and some projects for the county. And we have, like I said, like 12 employees. So the traffic we would generate would not be the type of traffic that perhaps the staff might have anticipated. So the zoning request is basically whatever would allow us to do, and that's what we were trying to get, whatever would allow us to basically give our business a home that is centrally located to where a good portion of the work we do is, which would make it much easier for our employees, as well as less traffic on the roads for us because we would be traveling shorter distances to the jobs we do. We can leave a buffer zone for the residential that it backs up to, or on either side. There's trees there. We can leave a tree area for it. But Keller's generates way more traffic in one weekend than we'll generate in a couple of months. And like I said, it's a lay-down yard. We're not the kind of business where customers come and go. We're the business that you call us and we come to your site and we fix your problem. And then we return our stuff back to our place. The type of maintenance we would do would be very mild. Trucks go to the shop for the heavy maintenance. But we might do our own oil changes on site because everybody knows you can do that a whole lot cheaper than you can at a shop. Things like that help us save costs. And we have some small engines like paint striping machines and things like that, that we would do, minor maintenance on those, but that's the equivalent of fixing a lawnmower. But we're normally not even there on the weekends. So we would be mostly Monday through Friday. I think we've worked about 5 weekends in the past 12 months. Some night coming and going, but that's just for night jobs. We do a lot of work in parking lots, striping and sealing. If the business is closed, we work when they're closed. So coming and picking up our drawing equipment, going out, coming back, so it wouldn't be a noisy disturbance to anybody any more than somebody starting up a truck in their driveway and driving out. So that's what we're looking for. We've been trying to find a good home for our business for a while. We thought we'd found one here.
You're the property owner?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's it, your presentation?
That's
okay.
That's
Any
it.
questions
Yes,
for Mr. Evans or staff? Mrs. Jarrett.
I was wondering if staff could give us an idea of what some of the other uses could be on this property if it were sold. Thank you.
I think he went through that.
Yeah, he may have. I'm sorry.
Yes, I think.
There are quite a few uses that, if zone business, someone who owned the property could do outright.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
I do have a question for you, Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir.
You have one dump truck?
Yes, sir.
F-650?
Yes, sir.
And the others are what, 250s?
They're 250s and 350s.
350s, which is the same as almost as F-250. What are your hours of operation? I know you guys get started early in the morning because of heat. I know how
7
it
to
works.
7:30 most mornings, and guys are usually back in 5 or 6, sometimes 7. It just depends on how the job runs.
And you probably stripe lots at night and
Yes,
do
sir.
repair on asphalt at night because of no traffic.
Yes, sir.
What's your latest you would come in the morning from doing a night job? Would it be at daybreak or?
Occasionally, but that hasn't happened in a long time. We're usually pretty proficient, pretty in and out pretty quick.
I'm just thinking about the neighbors.
I got you.
Behind you, sir.
I
know it's an engine cranking, but it's disturbance to the neighborhood.
We could put a berm on the backside or whatever would work to stop any noise that they would want. We don't have a problem moving dirt.
Yes, Mr. Coles.
Mr. Evans,
Yes,
I
sir.
think the concern is not so much what your business will do with the property, but what future businesses could do with the property. And I know your intent is to stay there, but we have no guarantee if we were to rezone this that you wouldn't sell it, 10 years from now and it become a nightclub, and that's certainly not amenable to the neighbors behind or the area.
I'll accept whatever stipulation that lets us put our business there.
Any further questions?
Sorry, this is Mr. Coles again. For staff, is there any way to make this work for this petitioner without a rezone?
Not, I will say that not that I can think of. It would have to be something that the zoning administrator for the county could come up with, maybe a less intense zone. But this is a residentially zoned piece of property. A lot of the houses there use that little road primarily for access. They've already got the flea market, which is pretty substantial. And has a lot of business right in that area. So based on what his proposed use, which is pretty intense for even the zoning district that he is applying for, it was the least intense zoning district we could put him in without him asking for industrial. There's nothing that I can think of that he could do without rezoning the property.
Is the flea market open only on the weekend?
Saturday and Sunday.
So that's its bulk of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mr. Wayne Noah?
I'm assuming that proper notification went out to the neighbors within a certain
Yes, sir.
distance. And what was the response to that?
I don't believe we got any responses from any neighbors.
We did not. We did not receive any responses.
At all?
At all.
Thank you.
Sign's been up for about a month. It was supposed to be a July 5th meeting, and that got moved to today at the request of MPC.
Mr. Coles?
The neighbors who wouldn't drive that street, whose property's back onto the back side of that property, were they notified as well?
Yes, they would have. The neighbors on Clio Circle would have also been notified. Yes.
But only within 300 feet of the property, correct?
Yes, we can pull up the map. I think we've got it here to show.
So most of the neighbors on Clio.
So this is the map of properties that were within the notification area.
Thank you.
I was under the impression it was going to be like a dump truck facility. And let me ask you, Mr. Stevens, what kind of facility were you planning to build there?
Oh, Evans, I'm sorry.
Evans, I apologize.
I heard you say
sir.
Stevens. So
my bad.
No worries, no worries. I'd like to be able to put up a metal building that we can store stuff in, just park equipment that we want to keep out of the weather in.
And are you going to gravel the ground or are you going to blacktop it?
I'll just gravel it.
Okay.
Unless you want me to blacktop it.
No, I just was curious, Mr. Coleman.
Did you say Coleman?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I feel for the property owner with the plans that they would like to take this property, and yes, it sounds innocuous at this time, but our duty is for the future use and all the implications that come beyond that. And his business, is locating here now, and he's given very good reasons to locate it there, but if his business gets more successful and this isn't adequate, then he's gone and the business use is there. And we really have to consider the potential of the other uses as opposed to specific uses that are being portrayed by this property owner, which I agree are probably not of issue, but the long-term uncontrolled situation is what this board is about. So I think that we really need to have that under consideration. Despite what he's proposing, we have no way to make sure that the longevity of that never affects the surrounding property owners.
Thank you. Hope that's not a serious alarm. Anybody else have a question? Is anybody in the audience who's not here? Is anybody in the computer? Anybody on the computer? Nope. Thank you, sir.
I've got something.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Elizabeth Epstein.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any idea of plans for the properties that are directly adjacent to you on the east and the west?
I have no plans for those properties. I don't own them.
And you haven't heard of anything?
I don't have any plans to purchase them either.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? I'll look for a motion.
Move to approve. Move to approve staff recommendation.
Cole, second.
We'll go to a vote. Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Travis Coles?
Yes.
Ms. Epstein?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Irvin?
Yes.
Ms. Karen Jarrett?
Yes.
Mr. Jay Melder?
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Noah?
Yes.
Mr. Jeff Notrica?
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Stevens?
Yes.
And Mr. Joseph Welch? Yes. Motion passes. Denial.
Say something, Mr. Chairman.
Sir?
Make a statement real fast.
You can. Yes,
I just
sir.
wanted to make sure that the applicant realized that this motion that the board has made today is a recommendation that will go to the county commission. So we'll be contacting you regarding that meeting.
Okay.
That's right.
This isn't a county record.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir. I have a question. For what we do,
He'll talk to you after that, sir. Okay. Thank you, Marcus, for that. He'll get with you, sir, into the meeting. Thank you. There's no presentations. Other business? Sir. We have appoint a nominating committee for the next slate of officers. And I have selected Elizabeth Epstein, Mr. Dwayne Stevens, Mr. Jeff Notrica. This nominating committee is of 3 commissioners. Okay, and thank y'all for willing to serve on that. And at this time, we're going to go into executive session and go into the conference room. I need to make a motion.
Cole's motion to move into executive session.
Second. Karen Jarrett, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So Cole's making the motion to return from executive session.
No, a second.
No motions were made in the meeting.
No.
And no votes were taken in the meeting.
Okay. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye. And make a motion. We'll end this meeting.
Cole's motion to adjourn.
Second, Coleman.
Meeting over. Thank you.